him reaping what he sowed. This was not a result of sin. This happened without any error on Job's part. And that's hard to understand. And we're not going to spend much time on the mystery of God because I don't understand it, and I don't understand it to the extent that I could be of much help. But what we can learn from Job is a story of every person. It shows what the worth of a person is. And worth of a person is not the capacity to create goods or improve the face of the world. It's not the value of somebody who is a thinker, a philanthropist, a practitioner of religion. Everything in this story is about what's inside. A person is valued by what's within themselves. And it's so nice to read scripture that was probably finalized in 500 BC, and it still be alive and something we can go to and learn from. And Job has it all. There's a lot in those 42 chapters. We have narrative, dialogue, hymn, drama, prayer, lament, proverb, oath, and oracle. And from a contemporary standpoint, Job is also seen as one of the greatest pieces of literature ever written. And the book opens rather simply. It's a righteous man who has been blessed in abundance by God. But then disaster hits very quickly. A messenger comes. All your livestock's been killed. The servants are killed. I was the only one to survive. I wanted to come and tell you. That story ends and another person shows up. Oh, the camels were stolen. All the servants were killed. I was the only one to get out. I wanted to come and tell you. And by the fourth disaster, we learn all 10 of Job's children have been killed. Job has lost all his worldly possessions in just a couple of verses of the Bible. I think we can relate to this in modern times in the how many times have you either been or a friend been in a situation where just ultimate devastation happens and the same questions come up. Where was God in all of this? I didn't feel it. Why would this happen? Or, every time I see a St. Jude's commercial, my heart breaks. How could that happen to a child? What did they do that would bring that on them? And that's part of the confusing part, in that we don't understand tragedy and why it has to happen. Because we think there shouldn't be tragedy, especially if you're faithful, if you believe. How could that be a product of faith and belief? But we also know we live in a fallen world. And in a fallen world where we all sin every day, there's tragedy, there's pain, and there's heartache. But we will also learn in Job that victory will be his. Victory will be God. And just like we talked last week, the comfort that we can take from that passage of Scripture was victory will be God's. And God provides this salvation to all. So we're therefore included in that victory. Job illustrates how God works. God acts at the proper time to set things straight. You can see parallels of Job's story with Noah, Abraham, Joseph, and Daniel. Righteous man, righteous God. And sometimes it's easier to understand stories like Abel, or how simple it was with the story of Enoch, that they extend to us what constitutes righteousness. And their stories do have a lot of ideas of what God's righteousness is. But we get all the details in Job. There's themes of testing throughout Scripture. Job is tested. You can see early on in the book, God and the adversary were talking. God had such faith in Job that he allowed the adversary to do several things to Job. Because the adversary, who later in Scripture will identify as the devil or Satan, the devil believed that you strip Job of everything he has, he's not going to be faithful. You've blessed him with abundance. That's why he's loyal to you. But stripped of all his blessings, Job is loyal. So then the adversary comes back, give him an illness, give him sores, then he'll curse you. And Job didn't. He stayed faithful and loyal to God. And then Job has 3 friends come from the Far East to visit. And we do see a beautiful friendship in chapter 42. And that's the way I wanted to introduce this and also to end it. But when Job's 3 friends arrive, they do mourn for him and his loss the appropriate 7 days and nights. But after that, they weren't very much of a friend for a whole long period of time. A friend is defined here pretty well. You show up and you support your friend in their despair. A friend should comfort and support. But Job's 3 friends, as they start talking to each other, Job, this has to be something you've done. Just ask for forgiveness. But Job didn't need to. This was not a result of sin. And then they challenge Job with, well, maybe it's something you did unknowingly. So the friends who came to comfort and provide peace and support actually become a challenge to Job and question Job's integrity. They take on an adversarial role with him, but Job stays focused. And that's the real beauty of this story, in that Job stays focused. We have friends come on the scene. They start out as good friends. It's questionable whether they were good friends throughout. But then, when we get to chapter 42, Job prays for his friends, and everything changes. And his friends come back into the role that a friend should be. They ate bread in his house. What that means is Job was restored to his place as honored guest in his authority. They brought him silver and gold. He treated his daughters in the same respect that he did his sons. They got inheritance as well. Usually in this time period, the only time a daughter gets inheritance is if there were no sons born. In Jewish tradition, it was very important for the patriarch to be able to see their 3rd and 4th generation. And as we got to verse 16, he saw his children and their children to the 4th generation. And not only was everything restored to Job, his blessings were multiplied. We read the numbers. This is twice as much as he had before. And the good news with the children that he did lose at the beginning of the book, we know that loss is temporary because they're in heaven, and Job will see them again soon. And while this happened to a man at 70 years old, he withstood it. He endured. He remained faithful. And God provided. God wins in the end, just like he told the adversary he would. God wins here. Job wins here. So pray for your friends. Look at how it worked out for Job. And if there's one thing I can say with certainty, you can't outgive God. If you give to your friends and you're there for them, and you provide in times of need, your blessings will be much more abundant than you had before. And we don't do it for the reward. The reward is a byproduct of the action. the tragedy can happen, but the blessings can happen too. We just have to keep our eye on God and not the clock. And we're going to win. It's guaranteed. And we will be reunited with those we miss and love. Because we know where they are and we know where we're headed. When we stay the course